Bienenstich or bee sting is Germany's most popular cake. I will teach you how to bake it, and at the end of this video you will also find a quick German lesson where you will learn the German word for cake, so please stay tuned until the very end. These are the ingredients for the dough, but you will need more for the topping and filling. The complete list of amounts and ingredients is on my blog MyGerman.Recipes. To make the dough, I start with the flour and create a little indentation for the yeast. And I prefer fresh yeast over the dry one. It simply seems to work better, and in my opinion it also tastes better. The only place I found fresh yeast in the Houston area has been the Central Market. They sell it there at their bread department. I add a little sugar, and some of the warm milk, and let it stand for like 10 minutes. As you can see, the yeast has grown in my little ditch, and I can continue by adding the rest of the milk. And now I add the melted butter. I melted it in the microwave before I started the dough, and it has cooled down enough to not kill the yeast, but also not so much to become solid again. Here comes my vanilla sugar again. The recipe link is on this page, and I'm generous with the vanilla sugar since I just love vanilla. Pinch of salt, or 2. And now the eggs. Here comes the rest of the sugar, and the dough is ready to be stirred. I start slow, and then I speed it up. So after a while I have this beautiful dough, and I cover it with a tea towel and set it at a warm place to grow. In the meantime, I will prepare the almond topping. I take a butter stick and let it melt. Since this is so satisfying to watch, I will let you watch this in a time lapse. Once it is melted, I add the sugar. I stir it all in, and then I add and 3 tablespoons of milk. Stirring. It's bubbling already. Again, some vanilla sugar. And now I'm adding the almonds. I mix it very well. I want the sugar to dissolve and I want it to boil a little bit. I really wish you could smell this because it just smells amazing. Try to imagine like a mix of vanilla and almond and sweetness. Well, that's what I have here right now. So now let's take a look at our dough. It has been standing for about an hour and it's kind of hard to see from above, but it has almost doubled its size. I will carefully remove it from the bowl. No dough left behind. I'm big on scrubbing out bowls. You might have noticed that. And now I will give it a little knead. I've previously prepared this baking sheet with some parchment paper and I try to stick it down with a little bit of butter. With a rolling pin I will now spread the dough to the entire baking sheet, and that requires a little patience, so I will rush it a little bit in this video. Next I will add the almond topping to the dough. This is me scrapping again. I spread it evenly on the top. Now I could have done this before I added the toppings, but it's not too late to poke some holes into the dough. It's actually easier when you do it without almonds in the way. After this, I will let the dough rise for another 30 to 50 minutes. Time to make the pudding filling. When it comes to pudding, I'm quite old-fashioned. I like to cook it. But if you prefer to just whip some cold pudding cream, that's totally okay. I add a large package of pudding to the milk and stick to the instructions. It's important to stir it a lot, so there's nothing sticking on the bottom of the pot and starting to burn. A friend of mine once complained that her pudding always burns, so I watched her cooking it. She put the stove on the highest temperature because she wanted it to go fast, and that was her mistake. Use medium heat, and though it will take a little longer, it is the way to do it so it doesn't burn. It's almost boiling. Here you go. While the pudding cools, I make the whipped cream. Notice that there is no sugar added here. The dough of the cake looks a lot larger and fluffy and is now ready to go into the oven. Let's take a look at the cake while it is baking. It's almost ready, just another 4 minutes to go, and the entire house smells fantastic. Actually, each family member has been sneaking into the kitchen following this amazing scent, and I can literally feel them circling this area like hyenas, waiting for a bite of it. Now, fresh from the oven, still very hot. Doesn't that look amazing? So delicious. And this is what a German bakery smells like in the afternoon. The fresher your Bienenstich, the better it tastes. I had the cake on the cooling rack now for a while, and it's time to do the filling. First, I have to cut the sides of the entire cake. The scraps are very welcome by every child while still warm. Now I cut the cake in halves, very carefully. The pudding should have cooled by now, but in my case it is still a little bit too warm and liquid. But I don't want to lose the daylight, otherwise the video lighting becomes really complicated, so I will just continue, and you will keep in mind that your pudding needs to be a lot more solid than mine, okay? I carefully mix the whipped cream with the pudding. Till it's nice and even. And now to fill the cake, I take 1/2 of it and cut it in quarters. And then I'm very careful and slice it. Spread the filling onto the lower half, and as I mentioned before, it's unfortunately a little too liquid. Anyway. Next I put the upper half back on top, and this piece of cake will make 2 to 3 portions. If you have more cake than you can eat, just freeze it. I will continue filling the rest of the cake and then it's done. But please stay tuned for another quick German lesson. The German word I want to teach you today is Kuchen. Kuchen. It's the German word for cake. Most English-speaking people have trouble to speak the ch sound, and not enough of that, there are even 3 different ways to pronounce the ch. Like in Kuchen, ch like in mächtig, and sch like in Chemie. And it depends on the word which one it is. If you can't pronounce it, that's okay. Just use the K sound and we'll understand, and it sort of sounds cute too. Kaffee und Kuchen, or coffee and cake, is in Germany what tea and toast is in England. It's like an extra meal in the afternoon. Mostly around 3 p.m, Germans feel like they need some cake and coffee, and if you are invited in the afternoon, there's like a 95% chance that there will be cake on the table. The other 5% is the possibility of cookies or fruits. But there will be food if you have been invited. Oh, and one more thing. Germans sit during social gatherings. I still try getting my American guests to do that, but yet without success. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did so, I would be happy about a thumbs up on YouTube, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. There will be more videos to come. Bye!